those of you who are just listening to this podcast, whether it be on Spotify or maybe you turned on YouTube and just put your phone in your pocket, just going to listen, this is going to mean nothing to you. But for those who are watching, you'll notice that it's a little bit darker in this room, kind of casting some weird shadows here in my office. And it's because the light bulbs in my office have all burnt out. And it's incredibly difficult to find the specific light bulb I need. It's a very unique light bulb. And so I've had to go around to Menards and Lowe's and Home Depot. Can't find them. Continuing my quest to find these specific light bulbs because there are some similar. But when I put them into the ceiling fan or the light fixture, they give out after 3 or 4 weeks. They burn out. So it's been a very frustrating process. But the point is that I now have a very bright lamp beside me that's casting some weird shadows. It is not it's not a specific Halloween effect. It's not done intentionally. It's casting some weird shadows. So you'll see, probably see some weird shadows, and you can see the flag moving in the background. Just if you hear anything other than my voice or the dog barking, or see some weird shadows, just let me know at some point, and we'll get the Ghostbusters out here and investigate. Anyway, thank you for tuning into the Boiler Banter podcast. My name is Dustin Schutte from Purdue Boilermakers on SI. You can find my content at Purdue, at si.com/college/Purdue, or visit me on Twitter at Schutte Dustin, or here on YouTube. Just type in my name, Dustin Schutte, in the Boiler Banter podcast, and it'll pop right up. So earlier today, yes, I'm recording 2 podcasts one day. Earlier today, released one about, getting caught up on Purdue basketball recruiting, media days, fan day, all that kind of information. But now I want to talk about Purdue football and kind of preview this matchup against Illinois. And before I dive into it, look, I'm going to just go ahead and say what a lot of you are probably thinking, because I'm going to say it at some point in this podcast. I have mentioned and given Purdue chances in both the USC and Notre Dame game. And yes, I'm going to give them a legitimate shot. And I actually think they're going to upset Illinois on Saturday at Ross-Ade Stadium. Call me a homer. I totally get it. Maybe it's because I'm too close to the program. Maybe it's because I see too many positive signs. Maybe something happens this weekend and it bursts my bubble, and I'm not going to pick the Boilermakers the rest of the season. I seriously doubt that happens. But there is a reason to me. Now, you go back, and I was confident that they beat, or not that they beat. I was confident they'd be competitive against USC, and I think most people agreed that they were for, until the last, 7-8 minutes of that game. Not so much against Notre Dame, but I thought it was going to take an awful lot for them to be able to pull off the upset against Notre Dame. I think they had a legitimate chance against USC. This is another week I think they have a legitimate chance, and maybe even better than a legitimate chance, to win this game. There are a lot of reasons for that, and it's not just – I dove into some of the statistics, watched Illinois play, and some of the things I've seen from Purdue through the first 4 games, I think give you a lot of reason for hope. So I'm going to dive into some of that right now. And the first thing to me that kind of jumps off the page is I think Purdue's offense actually matches up very well with the Illinois defense. And the reason for that is, and again, coming into the season, I think people would have said that Illinois' defense was going to be a strength. Illinois has now played 3 Power 4 opponents. They played 2 Big Ten games against USC and Indiana. They played Duke in non-conference play. And it's been pretty ugly in terms of a yardage standpoint, right? In those 3 games, they have essentially allowed 500 yards per game. 500 yards per game in those 3 games. They gave up 438 in the win over Duke. They gave up 579 in the loss to Indiana, and then they gave up 490 in the win over USC. So this is a team that is, and by the way, I should mention, Against Duke, 356 through the air. 267 through the air against Indiana. 364 through the air against USC. So what does Purdue do extremely well? They throw the football really well. Ryan Brown has been really good at finding his receivers, making plays through the air this season, right? So when I looked at that, I think there was a tendency to say Illinois just had one really bad game, basically, against Indiana, and that's certainly true. Like, everything went out the window. They lost a lot of their defensive backs, a lot of injuries in that game. In my opinion, what was a questioning targeting call. Things just kind of got out of control and spiraled. But when you dig deeper, Illinois beat Duke 45-19, convincing on the scoreboard. But again, Duke moved the ball 438 yards. They were able to move the ball back and forth. 5 turnovers. Duke had 5 turnovers in that game. So what does it tell you about Illinois' defense? They really have given it, in a sense, has been almost bend but don't break, right? And so Purdue, when you look at what Purdue has done extremely well, they're averaging 279 yards through the air. They're ranked 4th in passing offense in the Big Ten. Now, some of that is because they came from behind or were playing from behind in both those games against Notre Dame and USC, right? So that forces you to go through the air. Some of that is because they have really struggled to run the football, but some of it is because it's also really good offensive play calling, and they have some really talented receivers. Purdue has thrown for over 300 yards in 3 of their first 4 games. The only time they didn't was that week 2 win over Southern Illinois, and Odom and Josh Henson put a heavy emphasis on being able to establish the run, win at the line of scrimmage, and run the football. That was the game. They rushed for, I think, total of 214 yards. Devin Mockabee had 126, 2 touchdowns. I think he ended the night with 32 or 36 carries, somewhere in that. I know it was over 30, somewhere in that neighborhood. So Purdue has shown the ability to throw the football. Illinois' defense, especially their secondary, has been very leaky. And so that's what was so interesting to me. Like, when I compared the numbers, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, Illinois' defense, I think, is good, but they gave up some big plays to Indiana. They gave up some big plays to USC. Really, Illinois has been kind of doing it all season long. The numbers defensively between Purdue and Illinois are actually very comparable. So I think Purdue's offense has a really good opportunity in this game. The problem for me and the concern that I have is Illinois' defense is eerily similar to what we saw in week 3 against USC. USC's secondary was leaky, had a lot of holes in it, but their front 7 was very good. Right? Like, they put pressure on Ryan Brown. They stopped the run. They were able to get sacks. They were able to, put pressure and force Ryan Brown out of the pocket, making plays on the move or forcing the ball out of his hand quickly. Illinois has a really good defensive line, and one that's going to be able to put pressure on Ryan Brown. They're probably going to win battles at the line of scrimmage. Gabe Jacobs has been, I think he leads the Big Ten. If he's not leading, he's at the top. He's got 4.5 sacks this season. He has been a force for Illinois on the defensive front. Like, Purdue's offensive line is going to have its hands full. And so that's why, but I still like this matchup because I don't know if Purdue's going to be able to establish anything on the ground with Devin Mockabee. I think when you have 2 weeks, maybe you can work some things in schematically that maybe whether it's, and I'm just throwing out here because I'm no X's and O's, but if you're able to work in some jet sweeps or if you're able to work in some wildcat formation or some unique things that maybe you like, maybe some pitches, maybe some double reverses, whatever you're able to work in there to where maybe the ground game isn't the strength of your offense, but you're able to keep Illinois off balance enough. I think that's advantageous. But what I really think Josh Henson has done well is he's designed an offense where Ryan Brown can get the ball out of his hands quickly. He doesn't have to be under duress very long because he's able to get the ball to his playmakers and to his receivers. And even if he's not, he is mobile enough to where he can move out and buy himself some time if necessary. I think that's going to be an important aspect of this game because I do think Ryan Brown can pick apart that secondary. And look, Purdue is, if there's one position group, in my opinion, that has improved more than any other from last year to this year, it's Purdue's wide receivers. In that first game against Ball State, Armand Branch had some big-time catches. Michael Jackson III has made some plays. E.J. Horton had a big game. Now I can't remember if it was either Southern Illinois or USC. One of those games, they went to him a lot. I should have had that in my notes. And then obviously Nitro Tuggle has ascended. He's had over 60 yards in each of the last 2 games. Purdue has weapons. They've used Devin Mockabee out of the backfield as an extension of the run game. Purdue has weapons. They have the ability to not only have those quick hitting passes and those intermediate routes, but they can go deep. But what Purdue is going to have to do in this game is they're going to have to establish some sort of run so they can take those deep chances and connect on them. Because the one thing, and this is again very similar to what USC had, the one thing that you're concerned about with Illinois is their ability to play opportunistic. And this has been a theme for Brett Bielema's team since he got to Illinois, to create turnovers, to create takeaways. They have 8 this season, and I know 5 came against Duke, right? So that's a majority of them. But you can't make those mistakes. Remember, Ryan Brown throws 3 interceptions in the red zone against USC. If you eliminate 2 of those and you turn 1 into a touchdown and you take away the pick 6, I don't know that Purdue wins. I think if you do the math, Purdue still loses by 2 points. But Purdue has a chance in that game. It's a lot closer at the very least if you eliminate those mistakes. So you have to eliminate those mistakes. You can't make those plays. You can't give Illinois extra possessions. Their offense is too good. But again, this is an Illinois team that has given up over 300 yards per game through the air in those against Duke, Indiana, and USC, those 3 Power 4 opponents they've had. And Purdue has thrown for over 300 yards in 3 of the 4 games. So in my opinion, that's an advantage for Purdue. The offensive line has to hold up well enough to create some running lanes for Devin Mockabee and the rushing attack. You got to be able to protect Ryan Brown. It's going to be a difficult task, but that's where the difference in the game is. If Illinois is able to get pressure and rush Ryan Brown and force him into throws he doesn't want to make, or is able to get home and bring him to the ground, Purdue's going to be in a lot of trouble. If Purdue's offensive line holds up, I really think they're going to have a chance to win this game. Let's flip it on the other side, because again, some of the greatest weaknesses for Purdue has also been in the secondary. And defensively, I think the most frustrating thing, I think there's a couple things you can point to when you're talking about Purdue's defense and the frustrations. First is, at least in my opinion, the frustration is your inability to get off the field on 3rd and 4th down, right? Like, teams have converted at a 60% rate on 4th down against Purdue, and they've converted at a 40 to 41% rate on 3rd down. That's not good. You're not rewarding yourself in those situations. You have to be able to get off the field in this game because Illinois' offense will make you pay. The other part of this is they've given up a lot of big plays. Purdue has given up 18 plays of 20-plus yards. 14 of those have come through the air. So you have to eliminate the big play. You have to be able to get up the field on 3rd down. And then you have only 1 forced turnover all season long through 4 games. Miles Slusher, the sack fumble in the Notre Dame game, which came at a pivotal time. It was a big play in that moment, but Purdue's got to be able to do that. And they're playing a quarterback in Luke Altmaier who has thrown for over 1,000 yards. He has 11 touchdown passes, no interceptions, 72% completion rate. Like, this kid, even though the Indiana game was a complete disaster on both sides of the football, he has been Mr. Consistent. And that's it. That's what Illinois can do. And they can pick you apart. And obviously Purdue's defense has shown that the secondary especially has not been able to make plays. So it's going to be super important in this game for Purdue's front 7 to be able to put pressure, to break through and win the line of scrimmage and get pressure on Luke Altmaier. Because if he's able to sit back in the pocket and have all day to throw, he's going to find his targets. or at least he's going to get them the ball in a position where either they're going to make the catch or it's going to fall innocently to the turf, right? Not to bring up an NCAA football 2000 whatever reference, but it's going to fall innocently to the turf. The other problem, too, is Luke Altmaier, very similarly to Ryan Brown, is able to use his legs to get out of trouble. He's able to extend plays. So what Purdue needs to do is when they are able to get pressure on Luke Altmaier and force him into those situations when he's on the move or he's under duress, Purdue's secondary needs to step up. And you'd love to get an interception or two in this game. At the very least, you need to be in position to bat the ball down, to make a play on the football, to make sure if he catches it out of bounds, right? Like, don't give up those big passing plays. Don't let your defense, your front seven's hard work go to waste. And I think too many times we've seen that this season. And look, Illinois' got some weapons. Caden Fagan is a really good running back. Hank Beatty has been able to do everything. He's scored a touchdown as a receiver, as a running back, and as a quarter. He's thrown a touchdown pass. He scored on a punt return this season. That's a guy that Purdue's going to have to keep in check. So I don't know schematically what Mike Shear is going to have to do or what they're doing. Again, I'm not a huge X's and O's guy. There's a lot of other people who are better at that than I am. But it all starts to me up front by getting pressure on Luke Altmaier. And if you're able to get to him, great. Put them behind the sticks. Take him off schedule. But even if you're just able to rush him, hurry him, that's when your secondary has to be able to make plays, has to be able to get off the field on third down, make that key interception, play opportunistic. Whatever the case is, Purdue has let too many of those opportunities, whether it be on third or fourth down, slip by. And that's how teams like USC and Notre Dame were able to be so successful. Because I'll go back to that 40.5% third down success rate. It probably is, if you think about it like realistically, it's probably much higher because I don't know. Notre Dame was at 1.5 for 5 on third down. And I think the next three, when the game was already decided, is when Purdue was able to get them off the field, those next three possessions. So really, Notre Dame converted all of their third downs in that game. So Purdue's probably giving up closer to 45%, maybe 43. I'm not sure the exact numbers there. I didn't want to do the math because, I didn't do well in math in high school. So, and only took college algebra. So that stuff is way out of my brain. So again, I think, let me get to the other point of this, I guess, before I make my case here. And that is some of these things, sometimes you can look at the statistics, you can look at teams play and say, this is why I think Purdue has a great chance. I think they have a terrible chance. And I think statistically and stylistically, the way we've seen both these teams play, I do think Purdue has a real chance. But there is another factor in this, and that is the fact that Purdue is coming off of a bye week in which it had 2 weeks to prepare. Now, I don't believe they spent the entire 2 weeks going over Illinois prep. Barry Odom said they did some good on good. They got in good teamwork that they thought helped develop and address some areas of concern. And then, but I do think they got an early start on that, right? Or at least the coaching staff did. So that's a benefit. You get to play in front of a home crowd coming off of your bye week, and it's a rivalry game, so the crowd's going to be extra juiced. Your players are going to be extra juiced. Illinois, the last 2 weeks, has gone on this emotional roller coaster that what would even be comparable to this? I don't know, like the ultimate drop zone, I guess, because they've experienced the highest of highs. What's the ride? I mean, I just call it the drop zone. The Hollywood Tower of Terror, since it's Halloween month, whatever it is, but they've experienced the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. Now, 2 weeks ago was the lowest of lows, right? When they lost 63-10 on the road in Indiana. And then highest of highs was last week winning a game winner or kicking a game-winning field goal to beat USC 34-32. Doesn't get much better than that, right? Getting a ranked win on your home field on a last-second field goal to go 4-1 and get your first win in the Big Ten. Not only have they been emotional games, but this is now going to be Illinois' 6th straight game without a bye. And I know some of us old-time Big Ten people who remember when we played 11 games and had just one bye week. Sometimes I don't know. I feel like there were some years we didn't have any bye weeks, but maybe that's just me not remembering correctly. but had one bye week, you wouldn't think it would be that big of a deal because usually those bye weeks were about the same time. Now I think it's a much bigger deal. Purdue has had 2 weeks to prepare. Illinois, 2 back-to-back emotional games in 6 weeks, and they have to go on the road. 6 straight games, and they've got to go on the road. So I think just from a fatigue and a mentality and a health standpoint, that benefits Purdue. Purdue had 2 weeks to get healthy. Purdue had 2 weeks to kind of get off their feet, relax, say, hey, we played 4 games. This is what we need to address. This is where we need to improve. And by the way, this is where we think we can attack Illinois. Illinois really hasn't had that. The other thing to me, and I've seen mixed reviews, but I believe I'm correct on this. I have seen some mixed records on this. Barry Odom as a head coach is 2-0 against Bret Bielema, and that dates back to their time when Bielema was at Arkansas and when Barry Odom was at Missouri. Missouri went 2-0, winning those games in 2016 and 17, and actually Odom was the last coach to beat Bielema at Arkansas because after that game he was let go from his duties in Fayetteville. And so Barry Odom has had success in the past against Bret Bielema. And at Illinois, Bret Bielema is 1-3 against Purdue. These games have been super close. 3 of them have been decided by 1 score. And the only game that wasn't was actually Ryan Walters' first season, 2023, in Ross-Ade Stadium. Purdue wins that game 44-19. And we all remember last year, right? Purdue takes Illinois down to the wire. Illinois wins 50-49 because Purdue doesn't convert the 2-point conversion, but still a really thrilling game. So Bret Bielema has had some struggles against Purdue, against 2 different coaches. And now you bring in Barry Odom, who he struggled against in the past. I just think there are a lot of factors into this game. And again, look, there are some things that Purdue, they only have 1 takeaway. Illinois' got 8 this season. They can't have those turnovers. Purdue has been able to move the ball. They were able to move the ball from the 25 to the end zone against Notre Dame, even though their defense couldn't get a stop and they did make some mistakes along the way. They were able to score points in that game. They were able to score points against Ball State. They were able to score points against Southern Illinois. They had the 3 red zone turnovers against USC, but they were able to move the ball between the 20s in that game. I think they're going to be able to move the ball against Illinois. You just can't have those critical turnovers. If you eliminate those turnovers, I think Purdue's going to win this game. And I think that they are going to eliminate those turnovers. And I do think Purdue's going to win this game. And how big is that going to beat a ranked opponent? Barry Odom, year 1, you take down the 22nd ranked Fighting Illini, you win a trophy game. And then all of a sudden, look, your next couple games, and I feel like I'm putting the cart before the horse here. But this is a pivotal month for Purdue. But if you were able to beat Illinois on Saturday, your next 3 games after that are on the road against Minnesota, who lost to Cal, on the road against Northwestern, who's not been good this season, and then at home against Rutgers, who it's gonna be a rock fight. That's what Rutgers like to do. Purdue has had their struggles against the Scarlet Knights in the past. Even if Purdue loses this game but plays well, I don't think there's an opponent on that schedule that scares you. And I'm not saying Purdue's going 4-0 and at the end of the month they're 6-2 and they're searching for bowl eligibility. I think it's possible, but I'm not saying that. But if you are able to beat Illinois, how much momentum do you have going into the Minnesota game? So I don't know. Maybe this is me. Again, it is very possible that I'm looking at this through homerish glasses and because I'm close to the team and I've been able to see some things and been able to, have interactions and things like that, it just feels like a different vibe. And look, the other part of this is I can't get it out of my head that Purdue just continues to fight. And I think the biggest thing about this team is it's not a typical fight. And what I mean by that is legitimately this team doesn't look at the scoreboard. They go out, and I've said this multiple times, not to overuse a coaching cliche, but it is legitimately one play at a time. And Ryan Brown embodies that, and that's why he's been so successful. He threw those 3 interceptions against USC, but I never felt like he was rattled. He would come out the next possession and move the football. He trusted his receivers. He trusted his offensive line, and that's the kind of leader you need to have. I think Purdue's offense makes enough plays, and I think let me rephrase this. I think the defense makes enough plays. I think the offense is able to move the ball and has a great day against an Illinois defense that is very suspect. Call me crazy, but I'm going to stay consistent with this in my predictions and preview that I published earlier this week. I think Purdue wins this game 31-27. So, Purdue's had a couple tough weeks. They've had a bye week. I think these two teams are matched up better than people expect. I think Illinois is better in the trenches, and a lot of times that's how these games come down. But again, I've been really impressed with the way Josh Henson has navigated and customized his playbook to work to his team's strengths. I felt like I slurred that word, right? Like strengths. Play to his team's strengths, and we'll see what Mike Shearer does. There was a lot to fix. There's no question. And if Illinois is able to throw the ball all over the field like USC, if they're able to throw the ball over the field like Notre Dame was, it's going to be a problem because Illinois is really good at that, and they can keep you off balance. So Purdue's going to have to play a really good game, but when you factor in the way that those two teams have looked, I know Purdue lost at home to USC. I know Illinois beat USC at their place. I just think when you factor in that Illinois has played 6 straight games, emotional weeks, Purdue's had a couple bye weeks, the way Purdue's offense plays, the susceptibility of the Illinois defense, I think Purdue's defense can finally make 1 or 2 plays, get 1 or 2 turnovers in this game, gather some momentum, and I think they're going to leave Ross-Ade Stadium with a win over a ranked team going 3-2, and then you start to feel really confident about the rest of the season. I'll be there on Saturday, bringing you all the action. So again, my name it still is. My name will always be Dustin Schutte from Purdue Boilermakers on SI. This is the Boiler Banter podcast. You can check out all my content at si.com/college/Purdue. Thanks so much, and we'll talk after the game.